Well met, and welcome to this week's episode of Beholder Bros, where we sit down and discuss mechanics, character building, rulings, and more so that you can get the best out of every D&D session.
This week, we're going to be taking a look at the best damage-dealing cantrips in D&D 5th edition. If you like what we do here, please consider subscribing, commenting, and smiting that like button for an extra 2d8 radiant damage. Let's get into it.
As any spellcaster will tell you, cantrips are one of the most useful tools available in D&D 5th edition. These simple but powerful spells have a casting cost of 0, which means you never have to worry about running out of juice when the adventure gets tough.
We can't tell you how many times a well-used cantrip has had game-defining, even breaking results. Today, we will focus on our favorite damage-dealing cantrips and how to decide which ones are right for you, starting with the terrible two, Eldritch Blast and Firebolt. Firebolt.
These two cantrips are by far the most powerful ranged cantrips in D&D 5th edition. Both come from the School of Evocation Magic, require verbal and somatic components, have a casting time of 1 action, and a range of 120 feet.
Eldritch Blast reads, a beam of crackling energy streams towards a creature within range. Make a ranged spell attack against that target. On a hit, the target takes 1d10 force damage, but that's just a start.
Firebolt reads, you hurl a mote of fire at a creature or object within range. Make a ranged spell attack against the target. On a hit, the target takes 1d10 fire damage. A flammable object hit by this spell ignites if it is not being worn or carried.
One of the best features about these ranged spell attacks is that they scale with you as your character levels up. So by 5th level, your damage output increases to 1d10 and does so again at 11th and 17th level respectively. The main difference, though, between these two spells lies in who they are available to and the type of damage they inflict. Firebolt is available to most spellcasters, either through their main list, expanded spell list, or by taking the Magic Initiate feat. While Eldritch Blast can also be picked up by taking this feat, it is initially sequestered to the Warlock spell list only.
You might be wondering, why would I go to all of this trouble for a different type of damage? Well, the answer lies in the type of damage offered by Eldritch Blast. Whereas fire damage is one of the most resisted types of magical damage in D&D 5th edition, force damage is one of the least. This is not to say Firebolt is a bad spell by any means. It will almost always put in the work that you need. But if you have a choice, Eldritch Blast will potentially provide you a little bit more mileage and more damage output as you make your way through your Dungeons & Dragons campaign.
Next up, we have every druid's favorite, Shillelagh. This transmutation cantrip allows druids to expand a bonus action to turn their staff into a deadly weapon. Now, instead of using your strength, our wise magicians of the forest can utilize their spellcasting ability for attack and damage rolls. Additionally, it increases their staff damage die to a d8, a big old d8. That's a lot of mileage from a cantrip and a must-have for any druid spell list.
For our next choice, we have Mindsliver, which is introduced to the world of 5th edition in Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Can you believe that's been 5 years ago?
You believe Xanathar?
4 years ago. Almost 5. I don't know.
Mindsliver comes from the School of Enchantment Magic. With a range of 60 feet and a casting time of 1 action, this spell only requires verbal components, so if the goblins ever tie you up in their lair, you might still have a chance. This powerful cantrip not only does a rarely resisted type of damage, psychic, it also inflicts an effect on its target.
Mindsliver reads, you drive a disorienting spike of psychic energy into the mind of one creature you can see within range. The target must succeed on an intelligence saving throw or take 1d6 psychic damage and subtract 1d4 from the next saving throw they make before the end of your next turn. Now, this seems like a great opportunity to bring up one of the core battle mechanics that we will encounter in D&D. Most of you may know this, but for those who are newer to the game, we have saving throws and rolling to hit. When you're in combat, you either roll a d20 and add whatever relevant modifiers you to see if you go past the creature's AC in order to hit it. Or if you're doing some type of area of effect damage, those creatures have to roll the relevant saving throw to see what damage they take. The boon with AoE's area of effects spells is that no matter what the creature will be taking some type of damage. Even if they make the saving throw, they will take half damage. Whereas when you roll to hit, if you don't reach the creature's AC, your spell or other relevant attack becomes a dud. Both damage types are useful in different situations and have a good combination, and having a good combination of both will make your player the most well-rounded they can be.
Mindsliver in particular, combined with Fireball, is one hell of a deadly combo, as it makes that dex save even harder a success. Plus, with all of the psychic flavored subclasses we've been seeing recently from Wizards of the Coast, It is really a fun damage cantrip if you're building a class that leans into that theme.
Just like Firebolt and Eldritch Blast, this cantrip scales with you as you level up, adding 1d6 of damage at 5th level, 11th, and 17th levels, respectively. Mind Sliver is definitely worth considering if you are planning to play a Warlock, Sorcerer, or Wizard.
Fourth on our list is a tie between Ray of Frost and Frostbite. These two chilling cantrips bring ice damage to the table in different but equally devastating ways.
Ray of Frost is an essential ice damage form of Firebolt, essentially, reading a frigid beam of white light streaks toward a creature within range. You make a ranged spell attack against the target. On a hit, it takes 1d8 cold damage, and its speed is reduced by 10 feet until the start of your next turn.
The potential to slow down enemies and punch in with some solid damage make this an excellent pickup for various casters, especially if you want to make ice magic a theme for your character. This cantrip comes from the Evocation School of Magic and is immediately available for several more casters than some of the others on this list, appearing for the Druid, Sorcerer, Warlock, Wizard, and even Artificer spell lists.
Just like many of the other battle cantrips on this list, Ray of Frost scales by adding 1d8 of damage at 5th, 11th, and 17th levels. It has a casting time of 1 action and a range of 60 feet. Frostbite, on the other hand, operates a little differently. And although you lose some initial damage output, this is more than made up for by the devastating effect you can put on your enemy.
You cause numbing frost to form on one creature you can see within range. The target must then make a Constitution saving throw. On a failed save, they take 1d6 cold damage, and they have disadvantage on the next weapon attack roll it makes before the end of its next turn. Giving disadvantage to another creature's attack is a hefty ability for a cantrip. In certain situations, against the big bad, for example, this could literally keep your party alive. So choose wisely when you pick these damage cantrips, because sometimes a little less damage and a little more utility is the way to go.
Finally, we have another terrible two, Booming Blade and Green Flame Blade. These spells offer amazing boons to all of you Gish players out there, those who use both sword and magic in a beautiful dance of death against their enemies.
These potent cantrips allow you to augment your weapon attacks with different types of magical energy. At early levels, and especially for classes that do not get an extra attack, these cantrips can make wielding a sword or other handheld weapon pretty viable. For some multi-classes, such as Sorkadin, these cantrips will become your bread and butter for layering on that extra damage to smite your enemies.
Booming Blade reads, you brandish the weapon used in the spell's casting and make a melee attack with it against one creature within 5 feet of you. On a hit, the target suffers the weapon attacks normal effects and then becomes sheathed in booming energy until the start of your next turn. If the target willingly moves 5 feet or more before then, it will take 1d8 thunder damage and the spell will end. At 5th level, the melee attack deals an extra 1d8 damage, and the damage will again increase. The thunder damage for moving will increase to 2d8. This will continue at 11th, 17th, and 17th levels.
Green Flame Blade, on the other hand, reads, you brandish the weapon used in the spell's casting and make a melee attack with it against one creature within 5 feet of you. On a hit, the target suffers weapons attack, normal damage, and you can cause green fire to leap from one target to a different creature of your choice that you can see within 5 feet of it. The second creature takes fire damage equal to your spellcasting modifier. At 5th level, the melee attack deals an extra 1d8 damage, and the fire damage for the second creature increases to 1d8 plus your spellcasting ability modifier. Both damage rolls increase by 1d8 at 11th and 7th level, respectively.
Although Green Flame Blade might initially seem like the obvious choice between these two spells out there, there is more here than what initially appears. First, we have the damage type. Once again, it's important to note that fire damage is one of the most commonly resistant types of magical damage in D&D 5th edition, and although Green Flame Blade might seem like it provides an automatic damage every time, there are plenty of situations where creatures attacking you will be split up, and if there's nothing near your enemy, well, Green Flame Blade becomes a dud.
Booming Blade, on the other hand, has the caveat that a creature must move for the extra damage to be activated. While this is also somewhat situational, you definitely have the ability to use this effect to your advantage. For example, many characters have access to some form of short-range teleportation, even through your spell list, for example, or by taking feats such as Fade Touched. This means you can swing in, hit with the Booming Blade, Misty Step out of there, and if that creature wants to attack at its next turn, there's no choice but to move and be inflicted with that thunder damage on itself.
Warlocks, Arcane Tricksters, Battle Mages, Sorkadins will all get the opportunity to take these cantrips, and other classes as well, but the ones that are really going to benefit from them are those classes. The reason being, they have the ability for Sorkinen, for example. Do you want to explain a little bit how that works?
Definitely, because you're going to be using these cantrips with your meta magic, for example, and in that case, quicken a booming blade, or and use that for your bonus action attack, and then use your main action with the attack action to attack again.
Because with these spells, you cannot actually use them if you have extra attack, except if you are a sword master wizard.
Yes.
And the other thing that you have to think about is, for example, you can't take these cantrips are not especially helpful if you're using a polearm, for example, because they say that they have to be within 5 feet of you. So since if you're 10 feet away using that reach, you actually will not be able to use some of these spells.
And they got to move forward, and boom, they explode with thunder damage on the way to you.
Yeah, Arcane Tricksters also have a huge boon because they get that disengage action. So again, if you use that booming blade and then you pop back out, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, and you have the cunning actions and all sorts of fancy ways to do that.
These cantrips are sure to put in tons of mileage as you make your way through any D&D campaign. Whether you decide to take one or all of them, we are sure they won't disappoint. So let us know what you think. Leave a comment down below and tell us if we missed any of your favorite damage dealers and how you use them in your campaigns. We love hearing about you and sharing our love for the incredible adventure that is D&D.
Yeah, tell us how you break your game with those cantrips and how you might use them creatively. We'd love to hear it.
Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.